Forbes Books presents The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani, highlighting the pioneers that reimagined possibilities and reimagined businesses. We all know that people's shopping habits have drastically evolved in the past 10 years, especially during the pandemic. But how is retail evolving to meet their consumers' ever-changing needs? Instead of old-school e-coms, their shopping experience might start on TikTok or an online marketplace. But in the near future, that might also include the metaverse. We're going to get into that with Rob Garf, the VP and GM of Retail at Salesforce, where he leads industry strategy, product, and insights. Plus, we'll discuss the shopping mall of the future, how companies can provide a seamless experience across physical and digital, and what it means to shop at the edge. Hello, Jerry. How are you?
Great, Joe. I'm in Boston. I'm here with Rob. We are having a great time here, good conversation, and it's really good to be back in Boston. This is where we had our first customer, and it's very humbling experience to be back and kind of drive from the airport to Boylston and Storrow Drive and everything. Looking at the Charles River, it's really quite an experience.
It's a beautiful city, and Rob Garf is our guest this week. Rob, how are you?
I am fantastic. It's good to be here in Boston with my friend Jerry. It's been a long time, and good to have you back here to visit.
Rob, the one thing I've realized from Jerry's book tour that he's doing, and as we're recording these podcasts, is Jerry's got a lot of friends in the tech industry. So how did you meet him? Because he seems ultra connected. I feel like he's like an Ari Emanuel style, like Hollywood agent who knows all the celebrities. That's Jerry in a nutshell to me.
Yeah, Jerry is a connector. He's an influencer, and he's just an all-around good person. And that's really, I think, if you asked anybody what people would say. I knew him in the early days of OSF, and he was always into solving really big problems and ultimately helping customers be successful. And so it's such a pleasure to see this book come to life, for him to tell his stories and digital transformation, because he really has helped define what digital transformation is. He is, as you were just talking about, he's the mayor. He's the mayor of e-commerce, digital. And like I said, I knew him when he was hovering around Burlington, where Demandware was hatched in Woburn, and so it's good to have him back in our hometown, if that's okay.
Yes.
One thing I've noticed that when people talk about Jerry, they say, we got to know him because of this one job, and we called him up and said, this job is going to be huge. We don't know if anybody can handle it. And Jerry would be like, yeah, we could do that. So what is that was that your experience too, where it was like, yeah, we could do that?
That's it. Jerry and the team just get things done. So credible, so humble, and solving these big, gnarly problems. The thing I like to joke about is, I met him in the time of Demandware, where e-commerce in the cloud revolutionizing how retailers, brands are going to market. And, we ultimately obviously got acquired by Salesforce. But I joke about that OSF and Jerry were the first to actually connect Service Cloud to what is now Commerce Cloud, even before Salesforce was doing it. So he saw the vision of not just commerce, not just service, not just marketing, but the entire customer 360. And so he was really early on in seeing that vision and how consumers really traverse a retailer and connecting that by putting the customer in the center of everything that a retailer is doing.
But also, Joe, you were asked how come that I know so many people and being well connected and everything. There is one best practice that I always had. Whenever I find someone that I really like, a good connection, somebody that is just a good human being, I will keep that relationship going for the rest of my life. That's a very good best practice. Good people are hard to find, and when you find them, just keep the connection going. Just keep it developing. I think it's a good thing to do.
It's interesting, maybe even ironic that we spend so much of our world in digital, and we make our living in digital. We make friends through digital, but at the end of the day, it comes down to humans, doesn't it? And anytime I see you, whether it's in a customer setting or at a show, it's just big smile, big hug, and you do the right thing. You always do the right thing by people, by companies, and I think that's what helped grow your business. You get it done, you fix really gnarly, big, complex problems, and you do it with humility, and you do it with humans, and the people aspect of it, and it means a lot.
I have not set him up to say any of this. I did not ask for it. Thank you very much.
Well, you know, that's true. He already signed my book, just so you know. I already have the very personal, you know, signed book. So I'm doing this out of the, you know, out of my heart, not because I'm hoping to get something. Although, by the way, we are due a Garfy at the end of this conversation.
Yes. He has the famous Garfies, you know, it's a thing. Everybody is going after the Garfies.
Okay, well, enough niceties about Jerry, because I know he gets uncomfortable when we compliment him too much. So let's move on to Rob and Salesforce. And so, Rob, if you can help me, you could probably get that I'm probably the dumbest person in this conversation. So help me out with the connection between Salesforce and retail, because I know how Salesforce works within organizations. They use it for billing and all sorts of things. But talk to me about the connection between Salesforce and the retail industry.
Salesforce and the retail industry. You know, when Salesforce really was hatched more than 20 years ago, it was all about Salesforce automation and more businesses connecting with other businesses. And since the onset, though, it was all about the customer. At that point, the customer was the business. But increasingly, particularly over the last 10 years, the focus has also been on the consumer. And in doing that, progressively really grown the footprint of the Customer 360 to look at the consumer across all of the journey that they're going through. Actually, our research at Salesforce shows that consumers traverse 9 different touch points in any different consumer journey. So our mission, our goal with Customer 360 is really to put the customer in the center of each of those interactions. And with retailers on average having 44 different systems to manage that consumer engagement, we're trying to simplify, we're trying to automate, trying to really streamline that experience across those 9 different touch points, from marketing while you're thinking about acquisition and discover, to commerce when people are browsing and buying, to service when people are looking for answers, all the way to loyalty. Again, all with putting that single view of the customer in the center of all of those interactions.
Salesforce has many other competitors that are focusing on the shopping cart and having cloud commerce and everything. Well, Salesforce is way more than that. Salesforce is, I would say, if we are talking about retail and commerce, I would say it's a commerce platform. Why? Because it's so much more than just the shopping cart. It's also the marketing journey. It's how to bring people to your commerce site, how you bring them back after they purchase something, how do you service them. It's an entire platform. Then how you look at the data, and really you can even use all the data to fine-tune your supply chain, to fine-tune your inventory, to fine-tune your manufacturing. So it's a way more of a platform than any of the other players that are doing this shopping cart technologies, these commerce clouds.
You know, it's interesting you bring up the distinction of data, and I'm sure we'll be getting into that because it's so important as it relates to digital transformation. But yeah, as you said, I mean, different companies, different software organizations tackle the problem from different angles as it relates to data. Some think about the data as it relates to financials. Some think about it data as it relates to merchandising. Some others look at it in data as it relates to content. But we're looking at data as it relates to the customer and how they're traversing the commerce experience and everything in between.
Let's dig into data since you brought it up there, Rob. Thanks for steering the conversation in this direction. But talk to me about Salesforce and data, the importance of it and how it drives the company.
Data has always been important, but really having a single version and a single view of that data has become critically important. I mean, again, data has been scattered in retail across so many different systems for so long, and that means it's very difficult to unlock the value of that data, access that data, and most importantly, activate that data. And I want to underscore that, activate that data. I'm talking to retailers all the time, all around the world, and they're not lacking of data. They're just lacking of democratizing that data, activating that data. So the way we think about it, particularly with the consumer, is having that single view of that consumer, no matter if they're talking to a call center agent, a store associate, or they're engaging with a website, they are having that single view of the customer that is accessed in real time and updated as the consumer engages with the retailer, whether that's the attributes that they value or the profile of who they are or the past purchases. It's being continually updated and then accessed across the entire journey.
I think what's important, Salesforce is very intentional about how they think about data, and they think about the way technologies are being put together in order to bring forward the data, and as Rob mentioned, to activate it, to make it easily consumable by different people that are looking at data, and how they can make that data really have a high ROI on how it drives your business and how you manage your business on your day-to-day. That's I think what's really makes a huge difference with Salesforce.
Yeah, and to put even a finer point on that, our research shows that 2/3 of consumers want a unique experience. By the way, if you ask them what that unique experience is, they're not really sure how to answer that, but they know they want something, and when they see it, they now want it for sure. Yeah. But the challenge is, and where the gap resides is, our same research shows that only 1/3 of brands can actually activate and operationalize that data to provide personalization. And I think data is often talked about, but what I often talk to retailers about, what you and I converse about pretty often, is what's the outcome? And that outcome is personalization. That outcome is removing the friction of the shopping process. And so few brands are able to really take advantage of that to drive personalized recommendations, personalized offers, prices, or just an overall personalized engagement.
We were discussing about digital transformation, and I'm the way I'm writing it in the book as well. It's really the technology is, in many cases, it's already there, but people do not dare, do not dream, do not reimagine themselves, because this, what you are saying, it's already there. You can actually use it. And just 1/3 of them are actually looking into it, are actually using. Why not the others? That's a very good question, and the point of my book is to push as many as possible towards, let's rethink this, let's review this, because technology allows us, like remote work. The technology for remote work was there for 20 years, but still we needed a pandemic to push us to reimagine the way we work, the way we collaborate. In the same way, in like the way we capture data, the way we use it in our day-to-day in retail and everything, that's technology is already there. We just have to be more intentional. We just have to be more driven towards capturing it and drive our business accordingly.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Jerry, it's a bit inspiring hearing you say that, because you're right. The technology has been there. The technology helps us unlock that value, and I think your team at OSF, you in particular, help customers, help retailers unlock that value. I was just with some of your strategy team just down the street in Somerville last week, a large global branded footwear manufacturer, and talking about data. They're not lacking data. They have it on the wholesale side, they have it on the retail side, but it comes down to really having a focus. And so many people talk about customer centricity, but having that focus, not just from the technology, as you're just talking about, it's how are you unlocking that organizationally? How are you breaking down the silos? How are you democratizing that data and able to operationalize it?
And like we are thinking about, Joe, I'm sorry, we are just going here because this is too interesting.
I feel like the third wheel on a date, but that's okay.
We are really in our space now. We are really in the zone. Here is the thing, like we are talking about data and everybody's thinking that this is kind of very esoteric, and how does this relate to something that is more down to earth? Let's take gross margins for retailers. Like the traditional process for a retailer is to order some items. Like let's take apparel. Like that this summer we will have a certain style that is going to sell. Some people make the decision that we need to buy 1 million pairs of blue pants. What if the blue pants are not selling? Then they're gonna discount, and now we have Black Friday. They're gonna have a 90% discount, and they're gonna kill all of their margin. How about if you use your data, you understand what your customer wants, you understand what the trends are, and you use all of this data to actually fine-tune your manufacturing process, to fine-tune your supply chain process in order to stock up on stuff that people actually want. And if people actually want, you don't need to discount as deep, you don't need to go and kill all your margins. Therefore, you are profitable. Guess what? Profitability, it's a good thing to have in retail, especially nowadays. So that's a very down-to-earth way of how data can transform your business, can make you more profitable, can make your operations make way more sense in today's business environment.
And you know what? I think that's going to define the winners and losers this holiday season. We're talking about margin being the Grinch that potentially steals Christmas because of what you're talking about. And it was the same conversation our teams were having with that branded manufacturer just a week ago in terms of, I called it, and it was the first time I said this, but the data supply chain. And within a retailer, oftentimes those insights that you're talking about the demand for the pants, gets locked in one system. But why can't you then cascade that to merchandising, to supply chain, to store operations? Maybe put a spiff in place to have the store associate push it. Or it could influence your product recommendation algorithm to help understand how you can push that and how you can outfit it. And like you said, it's not just about growth, which is certainly important, but it is about margins, about efficiency, it's about cost, especially when you're facing headwinds, as many of us are, both individually and as companies this year.
I think this is an even more important times to really focus on taking care of your gross margins, to taking care of your profitability, because environment is just not there for deep discounts, 90% discounts, and so on and so forth. So,
yeah, and you know what's making me think of this too is it's not a new problem, is it? I mean, we've been challenged with this. When I was an analyst 20 years ago, it was the art versus science, and you had these merchants who went to school and are very well trained on figuring out what the biggest next trend is, and then you have the science in terms of the algorithms and so forth, and it's blending it. In some cases, it is about automation, and there are ways to automate, whether that's in service and having chatbots, or it's in demand planning and having the algorithm think about what's the next big thing, or if it's on the website and having Einstein in the context of Salesforce drive the next prediction and recommendation. But in some cases, it is having that science help influence the art, because as we were just talking about us personally, it comes down in many cases to the people, and digitization should have the human element in there still.
And the art and science thing that I want to pull on the thread on is, sure, the art part is the folks who are the designers, who are the creative minds, and then you have the science. But those artists who are the CEOs, founders of the company, they need people to translate that data. Like you mentioned, we got a lot of it. So how do you know you've got the right person to translate that data? If you've got a company like Salesforce, is great, but you need a go-between between yourself and Salesforce or whatever data company you're dealing with, correct?
traditionally, we tend to kind of speak like this art or science, but it's not really art or science, it's art and science. They go hand in hand because you never have all the data to have a complete 100% view of everything that you are doing. So in most cases, you can get to 60, 70, maybe 80%, and then that's where the art kicks in, and that's where people kind of, but if you don't use the data to at least 50% in your decision-making process, you have a problem. You have a problem because if you let everything go just by, let's say, the art part of it, you remove a very important part of the decision-making process. And yes, you need to have people around you that can connect the dots, that can bring the data to you, that can bring the insights. Like we have this business intelligence systems, like Salesforce has Tableau, that really captures the trends, the patterns, and then the right people to kind of bring it to your level and help you then make decisions. And that's where you have the data, and that's where you have the science part of it. And then with your experience as a fashion leader or as whatever visionary in your industry, added to that data part, that's when beautiful things happen.
I liked what you said about art and science, not art or science. Yeah. And you mentioned connecting the dots, and I think that's really interesting to just get into in just one moment here, because I've been crawling through data almost my entire career. And early on, as an analyst, I'd put up these data charts where you could barely read the 12-point font, and I thought I was the smartest person in the room. And what I've learned over time, and I learned this through some of the largest, most complex data projects, whether it's data around merchandising, marketing, consumer intelligence, that it's as much about telling the story. It's as much about telling what the data means and what the business outcome is. And I think that's really important, because we often go through these data projects, but not knowing what the outcome is. And as I was talking about the data supply chain, part of that is what business problems are you trying to solve, and how do you then tell the story on what the data is telling us to solve it?
When are you nerds going to stop putting up Excel spreadsheets on big screens? You know we can't read that, right? You guys refuse to stop doing that. Every meeting I go to with any kind of nerds, it's like, here's this spreadsheet. I'm like, I can't see that from where I'm sitting. Can you, have you stopped that yourself, Rob?
Well, yeah, I can try. I've been going to a lot of therapy to try to move beyond that for many years. But no, you're serious, and it's a real thing where it's not just about the data, but it's about the outcome and telling that story. And yeah, a spreadsheet might make you feel like you're smart, but are you really enacting change? And with any data project, with any digital transformation, it's as much about changing behavior. And you're not doing that with a spreadsheet. I can guarantee you that.
But it's, you know, it's basic human behavior. Data scientists, people that are looking into data, that like data and everything, when we project something, we make the assumption that people kind of get what we are showing them because it's hard numbers, and it's not really a good assumption. It's really not a good assumption. You really need to contextualize the data to make sure that that data makes sense for your audience. Make it, to put it into, you know, you mentioned the story, you know, you need to wrap a story around the data. You need to make it digestible, because otherwise they will just not be able to swallow it and understand it and consume it. It's finding the right stories, wrapping it up in something that is more digestible. It's as important for somebody that works with data as anything else, as maybe sometimes even more important than the data itself.
It's interesting. We had a data scientist at Demandware who talked about it's actually not necessarily about the big data, but it's about the small data. And if I really bring that to life, is much of the data that we consume as shoppers is often on our mobile device, which is a small form factor, and it needs to be really intuitive. And if you think about oftentimes now, the app with it being connected to a loyalty program is the portal into how a consumer interacts with a brand or a retailer. It's not about the big data in there, it's about the little data. Like, what in that small form factor are you showing the consumer? Are you showing them their history on shopping? Maybe, probably, that would be good. Are you showing, you know, a scrolling down 10 times to get to the product they want? Probably not. It's what product might they want given what they've purchased in the past, and connecting those dots, as you put it.
I would even go even further. What I would like to see is not even my shopping history. I would like to have access to a personal shopping assistant that can give me a couple of hints on what to buy, because I really suck at buying whatever that is in terms of clothing and anything else. So that would be right there a different way of approaching the entire interaction with the customer, because even today, in today's world, many chains, many retailers use people to do checkouts. And I find that so not interesting. Like, train them to do something more meaningful, maybe kind of not a full-blown shopping assistant, but at least give me a couple of hints when I'm getting into your store. You know, it's different ways of make also their work experience more interesting. It's more fulfilling, I would think, than just.
And plus, you would wear something other than a dress shirt and a vest. You'd probably have other options as opposed to what you always wear. If that assistant was around, Jerry would have, like, you know, some nice sweaters on, maybe a sweater vest. But no, he's got the vest and button down.
Yeah, if I could, you know, you're talking about Jerry, and yeah, we can go into that, which you just did. You want to really go there, huh? No, but it's you're talking about a whole new paradigm in the store, I think. This personal shopping. You know, we talk about it in many cases that the paradigm is shifting from checkout, which is all about speed and efficiency at the cash wrap, where the consumer is like literally ready to check out, right? Or moving towards the check-in process, which is all about engaging the consumer as they're walking into the four walls of the store, when that's the moment of truth. That's the magic of what do I want to buy, what product is available. Coming back to data is putting that data in the hands of the store associates, so you're empowering them through a mobile device. And by the way, yeah, we can talk about artificial intelligence, but just exposing the data for the store associate to then greet. I have one of my favorite stores that the sweater is from, and they greet me when I walk in the store. Also, by the way, they know my neck size of my shirt, which, by the way, I'm notorious. I still don't know, and my wife always makes fun of me. It's like this mental block of my shirt size. But you know what? This store knows what it is, and they know what I purchased in the past.
That's exactly the experience that I'm talking about. That's reimagining the experience. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the store, but in general, store, online, wherever it might happen, a pop-up store, whatever. You know, you can sell shoes at a marathon event. And you should still have the same experience. You should still, you know, have this, as you said, a check-in experience where people recognize you and are able to kind of give you the proper advice. I also don't know what is my neck size.
That's why you're laughing.
So I can relate I can relate to your experience. Yes, for sure.
And you know, it's interesting. You brought up the marathon as an example. It's, you know, a concept we call shopping at the edge. I get so conditioned about thinking about the physical store, but I love where you're just pushing us. These interactions are happening wherever, right? And it's not just I'm going shopping. It's embedded in everything we do.
How many shoe manufacturers, sporting shoe manufacturers, have you seen participating with pop-up stores at marathons?
Not enough. That's where the magic. That's where the
they
inspiration is
all
happening.
over
right?
there. There should be, all of them should be there going after these people, because these people are ambassadors. These people are really into it. These people should be wearing those things.
Now, Rob, you talked about shopping at the edge, and I kind of want to sort of connect that to what you talked about earlier in our conversation, and that was how your role at Salesforce is maybe simplifying things. So when you're talking about shopping at the edge, inevitably it's going to lead you down to the path these days talking about the metaverse. And I actually just started reading the Matthew Ball book about the metaverse. And one of the things I picked up early on was no one knows how to define it. No one knows what the actual metaverse is. To every different major company, it's a different thing. So as your role as the chief simplifier, how do you simplify what the metaverse is as we get into this shopping at the edge era?
You know, I'm going to answer it in a biased way through a retailer lens. So I'm sure I'm then alienating many others who have a different impression of it. And in order to do that, I'm somewhat of a retail historian. So let me just take us back a little bit, where retail from the beginning of time has been all about pulling consumers to our property. That's typically been the four walls, then of course digital, and the mobile device being the connective tissue. And in that world, that shopping was a discrete event. It was, I'm going shopping. There's an active, I'm going. And that is very discrete. And it's very linear as well. There aren't a lot of places you're popping in and out of. Now, it's not as much about pulling the consumer to where we are, but it's pushing our brand to wherever the consumers are. Like you said, that could be the marathon. And in that case, the reason that's happening is shopping is I'm shopping. I'm not going shopping, I'm shopping. And that means shopping is now embedded in everything we're doing, and it's totally fragmented. We pop in and out of these 9 different touch points in any given shopping journey. So shopping at the edge, the metaverse is an idea that shopping is happening in our daily lives, and we need to embed the buy button wherever the consumers are to remove that friction. In the metaverse, you might be playing a video game, and in that world, you might see something you like because a skin a different avatar is wearing. How do you buy that? Not just the skin in the virtual world, but how do you actually physically buy that product? That's what some fashion and luxury brands are doing right now. They're actually doing their runway shows on gaming consoles in the metaverse, or doing live streaming. In the past, you'd kind of have to be that cool kid. Obviously, Jerry and I are not that cool kid behind the velvet robe, where you'd see the product and you have to wait 6 months to buy it. Now the product is physically available in the runway show, happening in real time. You see it, you can get it. So I don't know if that was a very simple answer for you there, but the idea is shopping is now embedded in our daily lives, and brands need to show up in a very authentic way, not just to inspire, but to remove the friction for the buying activity as well.
Yeah, no, and it's, we are talking about the metaverse, but like every kind of like in-game shopping, in metaverse, and so many other virtual reality spaces where you can be present, and but you have to be very careful to set up the relevant experience. Not everything goes everywhere. You mentioned luxury. You have to appropriately associate yourself with the proper experience, otherwise it can backfire. This makes complete sense, and this continuum this continuum in like you're not going shopping, but you are just shopping. It's you're interacting with various places, with various areas where you can actually shop.
Yeah, and maybe I'll give an example just to try to bring it to life, and it might not be particularly around the metaverse, but shopping at the edge. I'm friends with the former chief experience officer at an outdoor brand, and the way he puts it is, while they want to sell a fly fishing rod, they'll take that all day long, great margin, and they have really loyal customers. They ultimately want to be there when that person is planning their trip of a lifetime for a Alaska excursion to go fishing. And in that case, again, the person isn't going shopping. They're trying to solve a big problem, which is, how do I get that fly fishing rod? How do I get to Alaska? How do I get from the airport to the village? How do I get on that boat? And this brand wants to be there. Maybe they're not selling everything and providing all those services, but they want to be there as the trusted partner to really enable this trip of a lifetime to happen.
And one more note on shopping at the edge, Rob. One thing, and it's funny, Jerry kind of brought it up before, is like a lot of these retailers are like, okay, I've created my online shopping experience. We've got the shopping cart. We're done. It's all we need to do. I know retail, some retail, because I don't want to do blanket statements. Some retail are pretty prescient and they got involved in e-com very early. But then there's some that like ended up being bankrupt because they didn't. Why is retail so slow sometimes to adapt to these ideas, whether it comes to just simply getting involved in e-commerce to where we are now to shopping at the edge?
One of the biggest misconceptions around digital transformation is, I'm going to stand up a website and hope people come, and then I get my digital transformation. It's about infusing digital throughout the entire process. Our research, and I'm almost reluctant to say this stat because it sounds so unbelievable because it's so high, 99% of retailers and brands say they have a digital strategy and a digital website. But what we found is 2/3 of them, particularly on the brand side, and particularly fast-moving consumer goods, only have stood up a website and hope people come. And that's not the way it is anymore. And so you can't just check that box, but you have to understand where the consumers are hanging out and extend your brand wherever they are. The reason why retailers haven't moved so quickly, we're really good at fast following. So we see something and then we follow it once it's proven. We're not as good about innovating and iterating and following that up with actually going to scale. What the pandemic, though, has really taught us is we need to get really scrappy. And I do give, because I'm sounding like doom and gloom here in an industry that I absolutely love, and Jerry, you and I have talked about this, the pandemic has allowed us to be really scrappy, move really quickly. I mean, think about curbside. This is something that we've all talked about for quite some time. And as a consumers, I can tell you most of us have now experienced. Now we're turning into a phase, though, for moving from scrappy to scale. We have to figure out how to automate, how to create productivity, how to create agility. And that's where we need to move really quickly because it's going to hit the bottom line if we're not careful enough.
You said innovating and iterating. I like this. I'm going to use this. Innovating and iterating.
I think it's so please
no, it's a very visual way of looking at how things should evolve because it's not necessarily happening in all places. They set it up and then they hope it's gonna work, and it's not happening. It's you have to spend time there. You have to evolve it. You have to iterate through it. You have to learn from your mistakes because you will make some mistakes and you need to adjust quickly. You need to evolve quickly. So that I think it's a very essential process of digital transformation because digital transformation is not just a one and done project. You set it up and that's it. You don't worry about it anymore. It's that you constantly look at the data, look at your results, and you adjust, you evolve, you adapt, you change. It's a continuously adapting and changing process.
And just, I mean, with all your experience here, Jerry, I got to ask, as you just said that, how do you make that change from you have a customer saying, I need to stand up a website, and how do you help that organization change to how am I going to engage that consumer everywhere?
Well, I think the customers that really like us because we also provide a lot of questioning and pushback sometimes and really challenging them. But why do you want this? What's the big picture? Where do you want to go? What's your business objective? And this back and forth, this pull and push, it allows us to evolve and to provide more business value for our customers, and we have relationships that keep on going for years and years and years, exactly because of this, exactly because also we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If the wheel exists somewhere, we just want to use it and build on top of it. So it's really this process that some of them they don't really realize that they go through, but they like it. Like it's this kind of back and forth.
I like the reuse the wheel. I'm going to grab that one if that's okay. That's good.
You guys just stealing ideas left and right. Rob, I want to get into a stat that you talked about the other day, and that's that 30% of consumers say they'll buy an item only if they can apply a coupon to the purchase. I am guilty of that. Like there are times where if I go to Retail Me Not or one of these coupon sites and then there's no coupon there, I'm not going to buy this particular item. Shopping habits have changed a lot, especially since the pandemic. You're talking about curbside. Before pandemic, no one would even think of doing curbside. How do retail companies and how do you help retail companies ride the wave of these changing habits?
Yeah, well, a big key that we learned over the pandemic is being agile. We need to move really quickly and we need to do it in a way that catches up with consumer behavior. Yeah, over the pandemic, loyalty was redefined. It was all about health, safety, convenience, and trust, which to me is removing the friction. The friction that was removed was I want to buy something in the comfort and safety of my home, and I want to pick it up or get it delivered knowing that the product's actually going to be there, because we have had a lot of inventory scarcity and a lot of supply chain issues. As we move out of the pandemic, that doesn't go away. Sample size of one, but I'm not going back and saying I want a clunky experience again. But it's as much about enhancing that experience, relevancy, personalization, and value. Discounts is a component of that, but it's really for long-term value and margin. It's about engaging that consumer and creating a genuine connection and a relationship, particularly with younger generations. And what we do, at Salesforce is we're thinking about all the time, how do you extract the value from the existing customers that you have, as so many are moving and switching and cost of acquisition is just surging. And that's about understanding who your consumers are. We announced Genie just earlier this year, and that is about extracting the data in real time, making that available to whether that's internally in your organization, but as importantly, to the consumer themselves. They should have the right to their own information to make informed decisions, as we do, as we're trying to engage them in really impacting that customer lifetime value.
But Joe, let me challenge you a little bit. When you are buying your sound equipment, how many coupons are you using? Is that an important part of your decision when you're buying your sound equipment?
If it's something that's important to me, I'll pay top dollar. But if it's something that a random purchase, like I'll give you an example, Jerry, pizza. Like every once in a while, I usually like to shop local with pizza. But if I'm in a bind, we get home late and I go to like a Pizza Hut app or Domino's app, if there's no discount, I'll go to the one that's going to give me the discount.
Yes, I understand, but it's also because they haven't established a relationship with you. They haven't established a connection between you and the brand. They haven't really been in the experience. They are in transactional. What you have with your sound equipment is an experience. You are there because you understand the value that is being given to you. There is a back and forth between brand and you. There is a connection between you and the brand. You don't have the same connection with your pizza place. I do have the connection with my pizza place, and I know exactly what is the item that I like, and they know me, and my pizza is ready when I'm going to pick it up. That's how you connect with your consumers. That's how you connect and you establish that, and then the coupon is no longer, it might be still an incentive and everything, but it's no longer the most important thing in your purchasing decision.
Yeah, I mean, having discounting solely in your promotional calendar is a race to the bottom, especially as we're talking about margins. And that's why, and I'd be interested in your point of view here, Jerry, we're seeing so many retailers and brands rethink or look at, for the first time, loyalty programs. And it's not in those loyalty programs just about discounts, but it's about moving from, I think you were going like transactional to more emotional relationships, and it's about exclusivity. We have one customer I was talking to over the summer, and they manufacture strollers. They partnered with the department store, particularly, specifically for their loyalty members for a product launch. They sold out providing those exclusive products to those loyal members, so much so they couldn't offer it to the entire department store, or on their site, they had to wait to replenish them. And that wasn't because of discount. You look at those strollers, they're not cheap and they have high quality because they've created that emotional connection.
Understanding what's important for your customers, establish a relationship, have a communication, a back and forth, identify some brand ambassadors outside of your company, talk to the super users, the power users that are really into your products, and understand what they are all about and why they are buying your products and how you can connect with them. And then it's you move from transactional to experiential. You move towards an experience, you move towards a relationship. It's much more than just, like it's been talking about this personalization and having this, what we call this high touch kind of a relationship, comes from the luxury space. They were always doing that, and now more and more everybody wants to kind of mimic that in a way or another. But it's not necessarily such a heavy lift, such a expensive thing to do. It's sometimes and some why sometimes the smaller shops do this very well is because they know their customers in their neighborhood, and they will know how you like your pizza, and you will always go back to them. But this can be done also at a scale. And the ones that are able to understand and set it up to do it like this, and sometimes it's small things like giving them an exclusivity for, strollers or whatever that is. If you understand what's important for your customer base and how you connect to them, you make the magic of experience happening instead of being a transactional conversation.
That's one of the complaints I hear from retailers about Amazon, is that they don't have any access to that data to the customer. They have no idea who's buying X, Y, Z, which is why a lot of people have steered off of large e-coms like Amazon. It's very important now for brands to have that connective tissue with their customer. Correct, Rob?
They have to have direct communication and interaction and relationships with the consumer. We started seeing that in the branded apparel space, footwear space, health and beauty 15, 20 years ago. I mean, you grew your business working with those types of brands going direct to consumer. They woke up and said, yeah, we're going to keep those wholesale relationships, but we are going to have something here working in parallel, and that's a direct-to-consumer business. It's interesting to see, I'm having the same conversations that I did 15, 20 years ago with those brands, with newer categories like consumer product goods or home furnishings or consumer electronics or big box types of products that they're thinking about going direct. And it's the same conversation. How do we balance the wholesale partnerships that we built our business on with going direct? But to your point, Joel, it does have to think about the consumer and engaging them directly and understanding them more acutely and not necessarily working through intermediaries solely. I think it's part of the mix.
Yeah, it cannot be that you are setting up the experience as a gimmick. It's you really have to interact. You really have to listen. You really have to communicate with your customers and understand what's important for them. People see through when you just do something because whatever, you want to check a box or it's kind of a gimmicky thing. But when you do it properly, we've seen many interesting cases where customers respond because you want to have a great experience. This is a value given to you more than anything else.
On the subject of connection, Rob, we want to plug Salesforce here because we've mentioned a little bit about the Marketing Cloud Genie, how that's connecting the B2C. Can you give us a little more background on that one?
Yeah, well, the cool part about Genie is actually it's extracted from Marketing Cloud, and it's designed to be a single version of the consumer, their attributes, their preferences, their profile that's updated in real time to work across the entire customer 360, actually engage with applications outside of the Salesforce ecosystem to ultimately access that data and activate that data across not just marketing, but commerce, service, loyalty, and any third-party applications as well. And it grows and it becomes more intelligent as the consumer is leaving their digital footprint. And so we're able to know them and be able to extract that value from the consumer data.
And lastly, e-com. This is just my opinion. I think the way they really burst through and became a mainstream thing is once they realized how to handle returns. I think one thing Amazon does better than anybody is the fact that you don't even need to print anything else anymore. You could go down to UPS store or Kohl's, and even smaller D2C companies have really made that experience super easy. I'm just curious on your take, Rob. How important do you think that was for people, especially people who were slow to adopt to buying stuff online?
Well, figuring out returns and smoothing that process for consumers is key, but even more key for retailers is figuring out how to do it and actually not lose their shirt or spend too much money. Because what that also taught consumers is this phenomena of bracketing. Zappos was notorious for this, they still are. If I'm a size 10 in Cole Haan, I'm gonna buy a 10. I'm also gonna buy a 10.5 and a 9.5. And you know what? I'm gonna return those other two products. Not very profitable for retailers. So what we're talking, and I know OSF, Jerry, you're talking to your customers about this too, is how do we get ahead of it during the shopping experiences you talked about, not just transactional, but experience, to actually give the confidence that the consumer is buying the right product. So that's actually revamping the product detail page, which has kind of gone untouched for many years, right? Thinking about how product videos, how product reviews, or the stylist. If I'm able to drum up and pick up whether email, chat, or phone, a stylist, whether they're in a store or a call center or sitting at home on their couch picking up micro shifts, to get the confidence that I'm buying the right thing, I'm less apt to actually return that on the back end. So answer your question, yeah, smoothing out the returns process, not just to go to UPS, but perhaps going into a physical store and being able to bring it back there, but also getting ahead of it and trying to reduce the returns from the outset is even more key.
And is the entire subscription model. Once you bought a shirt that you like, enable me to just buy it again every 3 months because it fits. I know that I like it, and then you don't have to deal with returns anymore because you know what you like. And I've seen others that are taking measurements. They know all of your measurements. They know where you are, so that they can. First time, maybe they will ship you 3 items, but the second time, it's always the right size that you're gonna get. So you're gonna have some return costs at the beginning, at the very beginning of the process, but then 1 year into it, you might have had 10 shipments and no returns. So that's also looking at it not just at the transaction as a transaction, but look at it as an experience on, during a year, and understand that, okay, maybe the first transaction is going to be more expensive, but then the subsequent transactions might be where it's more efficient, and you're going to also be able to make a little bit more margin on those things.
Yeah, at least somebody knows the shirt size of our neck, right? That's if we don't, somebody has to.
Yeah, it's a good experience. It's good value. It's a simple thing, but it's such an important part of experience, and it's not hard to figure it out. And yet, not many are doing it.
It's about that little data, just extracting it. That's right.
Well, Rob, thank you very much for being part of this conversation. If you guys, you guys are having such a blast, why don't you guys go out shopping together? You guys deserve a shopping day together.
Jerry's buying. Yeah.
All right, Jerry's buying. Rob, thanks for being on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Thank
This
you.
was so much fun. Thanks, Jerry.
That was Rob Garf, the VP and GM of Retail at Salesforce. Connect with Rob on LinkedIn or follow him on Twitter at Retail Rob Garf. This has been The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani. To participate in the conversation, go to gerardzatvani.com. The Great Digital Transformation is a production of Forbes Books.